Hello everyone, welcome to Astro Psych, and today I want to talk about sensing types. In particular, I want to talk about the potential for anything really in sensing types, what sensing types tend to be good at, and what are the things that I think don't get attributed enough to them. It's not uncommon still to this day for people to either come into my Discord or private message me and say things along the lines of, well, how could this person be a sensing type? They're creative, or this person can't be an intuitive type because they're not creative, or things along these lines. And I really want to talk about the misinterpretations that people have about sensing types and what sensing types really can do and how they can have just as much potential as the intuitive types. Let's get into it. One of the first major misunderstandings people have, and this is because of the community's definitions when it comes to things like intuition, is that they assume that intuition has this kind of hold over the concept of abstraction and that only intuitive types can be interested in things that are abstract. And this is actually a fundamental misunderstanding of the Jungian and Briggs theory, in that it's not intuitives that are inherently abstract, it's more so introverted types who have an abstract understanding of the things that they are interacting with. Because if you're an introverted type, you're inherently internalizing the things that you are either thinking about, feeling, or perceiving with your perceiving functions. And this creates an abstract version of the thing that you're interacting with. So it's not that intuitive types are more abstract than sensing types. In particular, when you look at types like introverted sensing dominant types, they can be very abstract. It's that intuitive types are more focused on things like ideas as opposed to things that are more so in reality. And what you can see here is that ideas tend to be more likely to be in the realm of abstraction, but you can also have very abstract representations of reality, which is what you have with the introverted sensing dominant types. If you go talk to an introverted sensing dominant type and try to get them to explain their inner world, what they see in their mind's eye, essentially, it's going to be a very abstract representation of reality. It's going to be their perception of it. And this is because it's not intuition that is abstract, it is introversion that is abstract, which is why introverted intuitives tend to be the most abstract of the types, because they are an abstract type that is focused on things like concepts as opposed to reality. This does mean, though, that people who have high extroverted sensing tend to not be likely to engage with things that are in the more abstract realm. And this is because they are not only an extroverted objective type, but they are also a sensing type, which tends to be more in the realm of reality. So you get this kind of doubling up on the likeliness of them wanting to engage with more reality-based things as opposed to abstractions. Whereas if you look at types who are extroverted intuitive dominants, you can find that they, while may be interested in abstract things, usually their abstract representations and ideas are very much present and represented in reality. There's a more objective focus to the extroverted intuitive types. And a lot of times when they point to a theme or idea that they are noticing, there is something that they can physically point to or kind of point to in some sort of realistic sense in reality. It doesn't have to be something that is internal to them that they can't explain, which is why it's extroverted objective intuition. It stems from something in a realistic sense. The idea comes from somewhere, or it is associated with something, and therefore it is inherently less abstract than the introverted functions. This is why I think it's really important to decouple the idea of abstraction from concepts and ideas, because yes, it's very much true that the intuitives tend to be more focused on concepts and ideas, but that doesn't inherently make them more abstract than the sensing types. As I've mentioned, the introverted sensing dominant types can be very abstract, while the extroverted intuitive dominant types can be very realistically focused when it comes to their ideas. Their ideas exist within the frame of reality. So I think it's important to really decouple these things and recognize that intuition is more so about ideas and concepts than it is about abstraction. And this leads on to the idea of creativity, because a lot of people will think that creativity can stem from intuition, that intuition in and of itself is what gives into creativity. And while intuition and intuitive people tend to be very creative in terms of ideas, you have to realize that sensing types as well have their own style of creativity. It's just two different representations of creativity. So take, again, for example, we look at extroverted sensing and extroverted intuitive dominant types. The extroverted intuitive dominant types, more so than any other type, tend to be very creative in the realm of inventions, or maybe starting new ideas, starting new projects, these sorts of things. And yes, this is a form of creativity. But then you go look at ESFPs, and they tend to be musicians, they tend to be artists, they tend to be other things that are in the realm of a more realistic style of creativity. And that's what you're looking for when it comes to intuition and sensing in relation to creativity. What is the style of creativity that is being presented? Is it more realistic? Is this a person who's giving a realistic impression of themselves and their interests through things like art and music, or are they doing something more akin to idea originated creativity, something that is going to be a representation of their ideas and the concepts that they have noticed, the themes that maybe they're seeing within reality? And these are going to be the major differences in the style of creativity. And you can actually see abstraction in the creativity styles of introverted sensing dominant types. There's a lot of introverted sensing dominant types who tend to be artists, and they're quite known for things like landscape style of paintings, because they have a strong attention to detail and they want to paint these glorious images. But these glorious images don't always have to be a representation of pure reality in and of itself. These landscapes are often a representation of their inner eye, which is why you can find that they don't always need to be the types of people who are standing in front of a mountain to paint it. They can have this strong inner image of what that mountain might look like, what that landscape could look at like through their mind's eye. And that's their abstract internal representation of the thing that they are seeing. And it is a representation of some form of reality, but it's not going to be a one-to-one perfect representation of it, because it's inherently abstract, because it's their introverted personal perception of it. I think the biggest thing for me that people should recognize when they're talking about intuitives and sensing types is that both of them are going to have the same level of potential when it comes to changing the world, for example. A lot of people who are new to MBTI will talk to me and they'll say things along the lines of, well, this person did something great, so therefore they're an intuitive type. And this is a completely, wholly wrong understanding of MBTI and type. This is just the entirely wrong way to look at it. And if that's how you think about it, you might want to reconsider your perspective, because it's not that intuitive types tend to achieve more. It is that the intuitive types, when they do achieve change, it's usually through something that is more idea-based and therefore might be more noticeable, but it is not that intuitive types have more general potential. It is that they use it in a different way. And that's, again, what it comes down to is how are the sensing types changing the world versus how are the intuitive types changing the world. And yes, intuitive types who are more interested in change might have a philosophy or general life interest that is more inclined towards a more grander change, towards society changing change. But you'll find that many great artists and inventors were also on the sensing side of things. People who changed the world in drastic ways were also sensing types. If you look at someone like Henry Ford, for example, I think he was likely an ST type of some sort. I think he was likely at a sensing type. If you look at Jeff Bezos, the now ex-CEO of Amazon, I think he just stepped down. I think he was likely an ISTJ, or is likely an ISTJ. And I think a lot of people who can change the world or do change the world are sensing types. And I think that this is something that we don't see recognized enough in the MBTI community, is that sensing types probably change the world more often than intuitive types do, because they're going to be actually more interested in engaging and going out and doing things, as opposed to intuitive types who can maybe get stuck in the idea or concept phase. I think a lot of people get stuck in this mindset where it's like, oh, I'm an intuitive and therefore I have ideas and I can change the world and all these sorts of things. But I've met so many intuitives who don't do anything creative, don't have any interesting new insights. They're just, kind of copy pastes of the last intuitive that I met before them. And it's not intuition that makes you an interesting person. It's your individual personality. It's you as a person. You set your own potential when it comes to what you want to do with your life, not intuition or sensing. And I've met plenty of sensing people who are far, far, far more interesting than a lot of the intuitives that I've met. And it really boils down to the individual person and not just the perception function that you have or that you are most comfortable with. So I think it's really important to recognize that it's not intuition that equals potential. It is the individual's ability, their interests, their desires, their goals. These are the things that are really going to create an interesting person who has potential. All right, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this discussion on intuition, sensing, and the potential of sensing types. I really just want to be one of the people who kind of promotes the idea that sensing types have potential too, and try to push down this idea that intuitives are some sort of, greater type of person. I've had people come and talk to me like intuitives are like people who are destined for greatness. And it really is, it's not like that. And it's really something, I think it's dangerous to think like that, to get into this mindset that intuitives are like this elite class that you have to be, like born into to have these abilities. That's not a good style of thinking. And I think that's actually really dangerous and going to be counterproductive to your own potential and even mental health. So if you have a mindset like that, I would encourage you to maybe reconsider and recognize the potential and greatness that many sensing types have. And once you recognize that, you're going to be able to far better communicate and interact with the world around you. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I would like to remind people that I do have personality typing sessions available at my website, asurapsych.com, if you're interested in working with me to find out what your personality type is and what that means for you. This has been Asura from Asura Psych. Have a good one.